Witnesses are recounting some of the drama that unfolded on the Sunshine Coast this afternoon. Two sisters have told how their mother and man raced to help when the carjacked SUV rolled on Steve Irwin Way, only to find the gun-wielding car thief emerging from the wreck. Here's some of what they had to say.
And one guy, he was up there with our mum, and he went up there and he was coming back down towards us, and he goes, "Run, he's got a gun." And our heart started to pound, and I said, "Oh, Mum, where's Mum?" And poor Mum was stuck up there, but apparently our brave Mum, she goes, "Are you all right?"
Because he had all blood
all over his face. And he goes, "I'll shoot you." She goes, "Hey, I'm here to help."
And Mum distracting him to make him look the other way, and he looked the other way, and Mum ran
into the bush behind the fence. And the guy goes to her, "I'll find you and I'll shoot you." All I was thinking about when we were running, I hope he doesn't fire. Yeah, we were so blessed.
How close to him do you think you were?
Well, see, he was up there, and we were past our
when you
driveway.
You don't think of all of that at the time. No, you just run for your safety.
Some crazy people out there. Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show, and that's on the 4 Liberty Network, baby. Good morning, pineapples. No, they are not conjoined twins. Waiting for the elevator to open and the blood to spill out. Speaking of movie references, what's up, Dad Bod? Quest Fanning, Cecilia H. Glad to have you here. Bruce Burtwhistle, Matt Unruh. Cecilia was out of the room. She thought 2 videos were playing at the same time. Well, today's going to be one of those shows. It's going to make you laugh, make you cry, infuriate you, make you think. Frankie Beans, Kim McCurry, Matt Unruh, Quest Fanning. Who else we got here? Nice to see you guys. Don't forget to click the like button. What's up, Amy? Everybody file on in, have a seat. Real quick before we get started, I have to take a moment to say thank you to a great sponsor that's helping to keep the Wake Up America show going strong. That's medssites.com. You can see a link posted, pinned to the top of the Rumble chat. MedSites is a company that puts your health back in your hands. They offer real solutions for men's health, women's health, and viral care, all without the hassle of a prescription. That's right, no gatekeepers, just fast, secure, discreet delivery right to your door, anywhere in the world. They've got everything from Mounjaro for sugar and weight loss, Mounjaro, to Sildenafil and Ivermectin if you're looking for a little extra energy with your smoking hot redheaded libertarian wifey. They even carry essentials like Ivermectin, Hydroxychloroquine, Azithromycin, Doxycycline, damn, I'm good, and more. All trusted by people who knows what it means to take responsibility for their well-being. Can you bless me with something? Azithromycin-wise. And right now they're offering a 20% discount on everything in the store, but because they're friends of the show, you actually get an extra 5% off. Use that promo code AP4Liberty25 to get 25% off your entire order. So if you support medical freedom and you want to support this show, head on over to medssites.com, M-E-D-Z, medssites.com. Show them some love for standing with us and for helping us to keep the liberty movement alive and well. All is well. And again, not to pat myself on the back too much. I know that people get tired and sick of people doing stuff like that, but I just want to remind you how the Wake Up America show, what we are doing, the guests that we book, the conversations that we're having are the conversations that your friends are going to be having, your family members are going to be having 2 or 3 days from now when it finally appears on the mainstream media. How do I know this? Well, guess what? Look who had the guest before the mainstream media had the guest. Here, look here.
What a reversal. I mean, Trump is now insisting that a trade deal with China will happen. The 145% tariffs won't stay on for long, and Powell's job is safe. Did the message from the investors break through to the president?
Well, thank you for having me on, Laura, and good evening. The message somewhat broke through. We can see it in futures pricing. The stock market was up a little bit tonight in the Asia session, but what I must say is when we keep going back and forth between no tariffs, 145% tariffs, maybe no semiconductor tariffs, maybe no tariffs at all. What we are risking, if you were to ask me, is a loss of credibility. And that is a lot worse than just having some type of, accidental mistake with the economy. That happens often, but credibility takes a lifetime to build and a moment to destroy. And
credibility takes a lifetime to build and a moment to destroy. That's Spencer Hakimian. You might remember him from his Wake Up America show appearance last week. We had him first. Now everybody wants him. Just so you know, I'm looking out for you, giving you the best news stories that are happening before they're happening. The breaking news that all of the conservabot accounts over on X are going to be posting here in a few hours, you will have heard here first. Although they're already on the attack against Jordan Peterson for calling out what he says are right-wing psychopaths. In an appearance on Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist, gave a discussion about what some are calling the woke right these days. What is this, Austin? What do these terms mean? Why are they important? Well, because these are the conversations here, the big brain conversations that you hear here are not just the ones that you're going to hear 2 or 3 days from now, not the news stories you're going to hear 2 or 3 days from now, but the major national conversations that this country is going to be having about our direction and our future. You're hearing them on the Wake Up America show now, and everyone is going to be talking about them 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. That's why you watch the Wake Up America show podcast. You get the guests before they go mainstream. You get the ideas before they go mainstream. We wrestle with these ideas. We tussle with these ideas. Austin, how did you do it? Well, I'm an expert. I have credentials. Have you ever been there? Yes. Are you an expert? Yes, I am. As a matter of fact. Yea, we be small, but we be mighty. Austin, how do you make the Wake Up America show work? How do you make it effective? How can you live on this, make money, do this for a living, streaming, and you don't have like 1 million people watching this show? Well, I'll tell you, it's not really rocket science. It's just pretty straightforward. You build a base of loyal fans who really love what you're doing and who think it's important work, and they are your benefactors. And every day, people on this show who are watching the show, they step in and they fund the show by unlocking bonus content, mini documentaries. And lately, the Lego mini documentaries have been fire. You guys have been dropping Rumble rants, $5 at a time, $10, $20. I've seen $50 Rumble rants come in one time. I saw somebody drop a $100 Rumble rant one time in this chat, right? Like it's Tim Pool or something like that. Like Tim Pool gets 10 times a day. But when that happens and we hit $75 raised by the end of the show, then that unlocks the bonus content. And over on X, I've been uploading the bonus content for the rest of the world to enjoy, and it's been making waves. People really enjoyed the one we did yesterday about artificial intelligence and how it's being used to spy on American citizens, and the conversations about surveillance and privacy that are important conversations that are being had. So if you'd like to see today's bonus content mini documentary and support the Wake Up America show, then make sure that you drop Rumble Rants or visit forlibertyshop.com, because every purchase that's made goes to unlock that bonus content. And of course, if it's not supporting the show itself, then it's supporting our sweet little baby Hazel Rose. So Spencer Hakimian, came on the show, talked about tariffs. It's a big conversation. The tariffs are up, the tariffs are down. Donald Trump feels one way about tariffs until he feels another way. It's art of the deal until it's cracking down. Conversations about the Middle East, conversations about the future of the country, and a question that might sound silly for those of you who didn't grow up in the era of dead baby jokes. But whilst this question may be tongue-in-cheek, it has a very serious base. How many dead babies? How many dead babies, I ask? How many dead babies to save your own life? How many dead babies to protect your family's lives is the question. Somebody posted yesterday a tweet that went viral, and people were angry because he had said that I don't really care about dead babies. Well, I thought my generation with the dead baby jokes, I thought it was kind of understood that, we didn't really care about the dead babies. But now we are all being browbeaten. We are all being hazed by what I would call many of them the woke right, but some not. But people who don't seem to understand the art of war. Not that I'm an expert or not that I've been there, but again, now that the standard has been set, I don't have to be an expert or have to be there, right? We can have a conversation about these things. And I can say that really, when it comes down to it, if it's going to be their babies or it's going to be mine, it's going to be theirs. I thought that was kind of understood. What is this? Oh, this is, of course, a conversation that's being had in the context of Israel and Gaza, yada, yada, yada. I was tired the next morning. But in terms of us versus them, I'm going to choose us. But I think there's an insidious... there are insidious powers at work in this conversation here. I think that there are many crocodile tears being shed for one side in that conflict. And that there is an influence campaign that runs. We're always being told about the influence campaigns being run from one side of the conflict. But then all of a sudden it's ridiculous. It's a shock accusation that there might be influence campaigns being run the other way. Let's call out all the influence campaigns. If there's an AIPAC handler for every congressman, could there possibly be a Qatari spokesperson for every person who received hundreds of thousands of dollars of Russian cash in the last 6 months, in the last year? Why can't we talk about that? Jordan Peterson did talk about that. He went on Joe Rogan's show yesterday. And he sparked a conversation about psychopaths on the right. Now, we all know that there are psychopaths on the left. It's quite clear. But what happens when you take in a movement of former Democrats, former leftists, into the right? Alexander, this is a gentleman who I've been following for a little while over on X, might have him as a guest on the show. Here's what he says. He says, we know that liberals have higher rates of mental illness than conservatives on average, about 3 times as high. There are other differences between liberals and conservatives. Liberals have higher neuroticism and outgroup empathy. Outgroup empathy would be like, oh my God, I want MS-13 gang members in my country. Yeah, let's bring in dangerous terrorists and criminals. Let's throw Kyle Rittenhouse in jail without a trial, or murder him because he defended himself and is a white boy. But let's bring in MS-13 Venezuelan gang members, Tren de Aragua. Let's make sure they get due process, but let's not apply due process to white males in this country. That would be outgroup empathy from the left. The differences between liberals and conservatives. Now, imagine if half of all liberals switched parties overnight. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. That recently happened. You'd end up with a huge influx of people who are mentally ill into whatever party was the dominant conservative movement. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, that's happening. Conservatism would, in effect, become more mentally ill. Traits shape our political affiliations. We gravitate towards political options based on the traits we have. Less examined is how the traits of members of movements shape those movements. Take the earliest communist movement in Russia, for example, or China today. You see socialist politics, but with gender roles more in accord with Western conservatives. The communists of then, in those times or cultures, looked very different from the typical communist on campus of a Western university. You have people drawn from factories and farms, not the middle class. A right wing of young men drawn from 4chan 4chan is a website that's kind of like the scum of the earth, gravitate there to like post and troll. It's pretty disgusting. Like, it's just gross. It's kind of like something awful forums almost back in the day, but in conversation wise. So these are 4chan and they work at tech jobs. They're going to look very different from a right wing composed of country boys with trucks who work on oil rigs. Don't doubt for a moment, it will be more neurotic and mentally ill. It will have higher openness. In other words, we're gay for Gaza, even though we're super straight and hate gays, and be more creative, but it will also be more unhinged, right? They can meme, but they're kind of psychopaths. I think this is how we see generational shifts from things like warhawk neoconservatism to topics like, quote, male mental health becoming salient in right-wing circles. Topics and concerns that were once the domain of the left filtering over, getting a right-wing spin on them. Think, let's give $5,000 to parents for having a baby to try and reverse the trend of the birth decline. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Traits precede ideologies. Ideologies are learned, but traits are half a product of your genes. Traits shape what ideologies you will gravitate toward, but the environment must contain that ideology in the first place. Or you need some exposure to it, or you can just make it up as you go. But whatever you come to believe will reflect dispositions deeper than the political ideology you come to espouse. I've heard the term genetically leftist and genetically rightist, but it's not an inaccurate framing given how traits predispose people to forming certain beliefs. What happens when you get a lot of people who are genetically rightist into a communist movement? It probably looks a lot like Russia, right? Russia now, right? You get people who are socially conservative, but they're authoritarians. Low openness, right? They're not very open to new ideas. There's restrictions on speech in Russia. High conscientiousness, so a focus on work. Right? Low neuroticism, so some stoic tolerance of bad conditions. The conservatives of Russia are willing to put up with shit from their government to to adhere to tradition, to maintain orthodoxy, and they have more socially conservative gender norms in Russia. That's where do you think a lot of the right-wing affinity for Russia in recent years has come from? It's due to those genetically rightist norms, right? Low openness, restrictions on speech, high conscientiousness, focus on work, low neuroticism, so they'll tolerate bad conditions, like this is just what we have to put up with, and of course, more socially conservative gender norms. That's Russia. What about people who are genetically leftists? Another interesting question, right? So what happens when people who are genetically leftist, meaning intrinsically, right? What happens when they get into right-wing movements? High openness, right? Everybody's welcome. Free speech, belief in conspiracy theories, alternative health fads, right? It becomes a little more creative, a little more diverse, more tolerance of out groups, like a tolerance for non-heterosexuals. Is this sounding familiar? Right? Empathizing with foreign populations more. Right? Higher neuroticism, right? The so-called woke tendencies, right? Victimhood. I'm the victim. The Jews are why I'm a loser, right? Feelings of oppression. They're oppressing me. It's the World Economic Forum why I can't get a job or a girlfriend. It's Klaus Schwab's fault that no one will date me, right? Externalizing. I'm not the master of my own destiny. Other people are controlling my destiny behind the scenes, right? Not masters of their own domain, right? Neuroticism, right? Not typically genetically right-wing traits. So movements change around the people who constitute them. You can't go back in time. No return to the past, because the people in past political movements were fundamentally different from the people who make up current movements. Beautifully written. And I agree. I wonder what your thoughts are. Send me a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. That's the text line. Let us know what's on your mind. Jordan Peterson appeared on Hannity as well after his appearance on Joe Rogan yesterday. Let's take a listen.
Well, I think the most important thing to do first is to draw a distinction between the political and the psychological, and not to collapse them together. So imagine this. Imagine that there's a group of individuals, about 4% of the population, who have a set of personality characteristics that have been described as dark tetrad. So they're Machiavellian, they use their language to manipulate, they're narcissistic, they want unearned social status and reputation.
Unearned social status and reputation. Note that. I think that is an interesting point there. What does it mean if someone wants unearned social status or reputation? right? Everybody wants something for free, right? People want respect for free. They want honor. They remember yesterday when we were talking about Aristotle and the Nicomachean ethics, and we talked about practical wisdom. Where does practical wisdom come from? Well, practical wisdom comes from putting it into practice. In order to achieve eudaimonia, you must live these traits and qualities every day. You must put your words into practice. You know, if you adhere to, well, who adheres to Nicomachean ethics anymore? We're talking about pre-Christian belief systems and philosophies here. But if everything that has ever been said by most philosophers had already been said by in Plato and Aristotle and Socrates in their times, right? We're just in many ways products of defunct economists, as John Maynard Keynes might say. I'm bastardizing here. But unearned social status is a serious problem. People who want to be respected in their communities and don't want to do any work. I see this all the time from people who run for office and then have no buy-in from the community. As a matter of fact, really, if you think about it, I was in 2016 when I ran for president as a member of the Libertarian Party. Right, you could point to that and say, well, Austin, what social status did you have then? Right, what had you done for the community? People who didn't know me or weren't paying attention, perhaps too closely, who didn't know me, then learned who I was and that I had been for 10 years before that working an activist, worked for the Libertarian Party, did so much for the LP. Until I eventually left, I got fed up and left in 2017. But the social status wasn't unearned. I had put in the work. I had done, and because I had put in the work and because I'd laid the groundwork, I was able to come out ahead, not just from savvy and maneuvering, out ahead of John McAfee, right? Second place to Gary Johnson, right? But I was able, and there were 16 people running in that primary, and all of them would have killed to have been second place. All of them would have killed the honor to stand on stage with John McAfee and to stand in presidential debates, right? Right? I have, experienced things that you couldn't imagine. But to come in second place was because the social status had been earned, right? I had put in the work. I had been there and shown up and built the connections and the networks. But I do think it's a major problem today. And it really is a problem with young people, not to sound too boomer, get off my lawn-ish, but that young people really think that like social status is something that they don't have to achieve, that it could just be granted or handed to them.
They're psychopathic, which makes them free of empathy and parasitical and predatory, and they're sadistic. So they take positive delight in the unnecessary suffering of others. Now, those people also use false cries of victimization, let's say, to manipulate, and they're entitled.
It's the Jews are why I'm a loser.
They seek vengeance when it's unwarranted, and they protest loudly and make very public cries for reparations that would be self-serving. Okay, now the way those people operate is they look for what patterns of belief form groups that they can infiltrate and then capitalize on.
So yes, so socialism, whether it's Marxist socialism or nationalist socialism, right, it fits the bill here. He's pointing at certain authoritarian psychopaths and the dark triad of traits that they have. These lunatics, Jordan Peterson is identifying here. Remember, clinical psychologist, so he's an expert. Do you trust the experts? No, don't trust the experts. No, Austin, don't you dare. Shut up. We need to listen to the D students. We need the stupid kids to finally step up. It's the idiocracy that must reign. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be something in between.
And that happens on the right. We did a report.
How is the sound volume, by the way, on the clips, guys? I'm still getting this new board in broken in.
Same group on the use of Christ as king as a manipulative strategy by bad actors, hypothetically on the right. And this report identified the same sort of people on the left. But it's not primarily political. They're wolves in sheep's clothing who look for where there's power and value and then adopt those beliefs as a surface camouflage so that they can elevate their moral status. Now, and this has become worse in recent years as far as I'm concerned because the evolved strategies.
Tell me if that's better, guys. Sorry to have to test this on you in real time, but for whatever reason, I'm just not able to get the monitor of what it is that you're hearing, right, and compare it to myself. So it's very technical and complicated, and I apologize for that. But please tell me if it improves.
Psychopathic narcissistic types don't work well online. And so the psychopaths can get away with their terrible manipulations online, and they can find like-minded people, and they can escape from any reputational consequences. And so there's always been psychopaths. Those are the Pharisees, for example, that Christ points to, the religious pretenders. Those are the people who use God's name in vain and claim moral virtue and even religious devotion. Well, all they're doing is feathering their own nests and furthering their own narrow interests.
Interesting, yes. I mean, well pointed out there. And there has been an antibiotic reaction to this Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan interview. And, I've got this. We're not going to obviously be able to play the whole Joe Rogan. So that's like 2 or 3 hours. But I've got some clips. I think that he sums it up the best here in this discussion, talking about psychopaths and how they can fester online. No, did you notice something? I don't know if you could remember from high school or from college. I don't know if you were a keen observer of human behavior at the time. Maybe you were. Most of you probably were if you watch a show like this, because there's just, people think I'm crazy, right? But I may be crazy like a fox, but in regards to behavior when you were in high school and college, did you notice that crazy people tended to gravitate towards one another? Did you notice that? And I was in some groups with people who were, a little cuckoo, a little kooky, right? And some of them were just childish antics, right? You're young, you got lots of hormones, you act a little crazy, you act a little weird. But there were like kids in school and some in college, maybe you notice, and maybe you even see this at work sometimes in social group dynamics. Have you ever noticed that like the people who all think the same thing about whether it's fluoride in the water or, maybe you guys believe the fluoride conspiracies, right? And again, I'm willing to change my mind if enough evidence, of course, contradicts what I believe. And we are going to talk about food dye bans, which, of course, is, I believe, anathema to what it means to be a goddamn American. If I could smoke cigarettes, if I can drink strychnine or, drink Drano from underneath my sink, it's still a free country. If I've got one unitary government official telling me what I can and can't eat, then it's not freedom. If banning food dyes is not going to get obese Americans off of their couch and stop stuffing their faces and make them any healthier, I'm sorry to say. But, this is kind of shit Democrats do, right? It's kind of shit the psychopaths do, to be quite honest. Psychopathic authoritarians who are so convinced that they are right? They all want to be Alexander the Great. They all want to lead a great crusade to save us. And God, will you please just save us from these humanitarians with guillotines? When will they ever learn? They'll never stop, of course, the psychopaths. They're never going to stop trying to control our lives. And most of them are in government. That is, and this is why I'm so, keen on exposing government corruption, speaking out against authoritarianism and totalitarianism, because I was a keen observer of human nature in high school and college, and I saw the psychopaths. I saw the dangerous lunatics. And you know what you learn? Right? And I think I learned it even in elementary school. You never turn your back on the psychos. Never, ever, ever. You never put your back to the wall. You always know where the exits are, because at any time, one of those kids is going to go, that could go postal, right? And you better be ready to secure yourself and yours. You better be ready with a plan to defend yourself and the people that you love. And ask yourself, am I ready? Am I ready to screw my courage to the sticking place? And have I got the balls to look them in the face and say, do you feel lucky, punk? Huh? Do ya? Right? Ask yourself, are you ready for these confrontations? Because the psychopaths are the ones who want to, the sociopaths, right? Sociopaths and psychopaths alike both want to rule over us. They have wanted power since there was any power. The petty tyrants, right? The student council freaks who wanted to do everything they could to control everything that went on in the schools, right? They would buy us off they already started buying us off with their own money. Remember, they would go and try and get, we're going to have sugary sodas in the cafeterias and free pizza Thursdays and stuff in order to, like, get everybody to like them, right? So it begins early. It's sociopaths and psychopaths aren't just the weird kids in the corner hanging out and, doing musical theater, right? Although some of them are. Most of them just end up being poor homosexuals who live in inner cities and, do drag queen shows. But the real sociopaths and the psychopaths tend to be the ones wearing the white collars, the very freshly tailored pantsuits, right? The Armanis, the Guccis, and they are the ones who are going to successfully they're going to get elected, right? They're going because they will have put themselves into a position to lord over us all. But you see it not everybody, of course, rises to the Hillary Clinton level of sociopath, right? Not everybody gets to those commanding heights. Many of them are our local town tyrants. They're the person at the DMV who doesn't like you and gets your social security number and passes it off to the dark web because they know how to screw with people and they've got access to our private information, right? Your local government official who screws with you because they didn't like you. You wouldn't date him in high school. They're the fat chick. And so now they're going to take out all of their angst on the rest of society. And no amount of bans on red food dye number 5 is going to make the angry fat chick that you turned down in high school and she was totally embarrassed not want to take out her mental illness on the rest of society. We are plagued by these people, and many of them, they congregate online. They gather together in these groups, and this is what Jordan Peterson is talking about. This is what he's addressing.
And the web, social media, anonymity enables them to organize and also hides them much more effectively. And this is a problem in religious organizations. It's a problem in political organizations.
Yes.
And it pathologizes the whole culture.
No, there's no one in religious organizations who's corrupt or sociopathic or taking advantage of people.
No, most people, 80% of Americans agree on virtually everything. And then there's these fringe people, and they're not political. They're psychopathological narcissists who cloak themselves in political guise. And we all...
So wait, I got to hear that one more time. Say that one more time because I got to type that into the search engines.
No, most people, 80% of Americans agree on virtually everything. And then there's these fringe people, and they're not political. They're psychopathological narcissists who cloak themselves in political guise. And we all have to learn to distinguish between the political and the psychological. We're not good at it.
I gotta admit, I don't quite completely understand what he's saying there at the very end, but it sounds scary. So let's break it down. He says
more effectively.
He says
the whole culture. Most people, 80% of Americans agree on virtually everything. And then there's these fringe people, and they're not political. They're psychopathological narcissists who cloak themselves in political guise.
Yes.
And we all have to learn to distinguish between the political and the psychological.
Okay. And that is why you watch the Wake Up America show. Because here's the fight. Here's the meta, right? When you're talking about these concepts, you're up in the commanding heights of thought. Right. So here we are. Big brain time. I apologize. I forgot to tell you guys. No Judge Andrew Napolitano today. Sorry about that. But we do have Matt Edwards from Idaho Citizens Activist Alliance this morning. He's going to be with us at 8:30 a.m. Central Time to talk about corruption on the state level out there. I'm excited to have him on the show at 8:30 a.m. Central Time today. Apologize, no judge. Back to this question of psychopathological narcissists. Okay. So here's what Grok says on a quick search. It says, these are people who cloak themselves in political disguise. They are individuals with narcissistic personality traits or disorders who use political roles, ideologies, or platforms to mask their self-serving behaviors and psychological issues. These individuals often exhibit grandiosity, a need for admiration, a lack of empathy, oh no, as outlined in the DSM-5 criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. It's me. Actually, I ran a psych test on myself the other day. because I'm seeing all these insane people online, because many of them claiming to be Americans, but mostly are anonymous, and I don't know, and I think many of them might not be Americans. They're just here stirring up shit here in the United States, trying to get us to fight against each other. I think there's a lot of foreign ops going on in the United States, and being able to recognize those, knowing when the Chinese or the Russians or the North Koreans or Indians or people who hate the, Gazans, there's a billion Muslims in the world. Many of them are very wealthy and very opposed to the United States and are glad to spend money to bring back the caliphate, right? And to express their cultural dominance. Are you seeing these out there? Is it going unnoticed by you? Because I guarantee you, big portion of the public, majority of the people, they have no idea this shit is going on. They don't know they're being manipulated. And are they often being manipulated by their own people, American people? Yes. So when I took the test the other day, I was just asking myself, I was like, let's check in, because Stephanie got me interested in it. She's a mental health chick, and we don't talk about mental health issues a whole lot or anything like that. Sometimes she'll tell me, we'll talk a little bit about her work with her patients. But she sometimes will say, am I being, ridiculous? She'll ask ChatGPT. She'll use AI and say, hey, how should I deal with this complicated interpersonal issue? Am I the asshole here? Questions like this, and how to deal with awkward situations, either with family or friends or at work, etc. Maybe even with me. Maybe she asked ChatGPT, how do I deal with my husband with this thing that I like or don't like? I don't know, right? We tend to kind of actually give each other a little bit of space and personal room on things like that. Like, she doesn't ever check my phone. I never check hers. Don't even know each other's passwords. It's no big deal. Some passwords, but that's because she has to log in and post her cute memes to my accounts. But I did one of these ChatGPT AI, mental health checkups. And just sat down, and it's interesting. You should give it a try. If you use any LLMs like ChatGPT or Grok, right? Just do a check-in, see where you're at. Say, knowing what. And ChatGPT was better because I have it learning as much about me as it can in order to help grow my business. The Wake Up America show, I've been using AI to try and scale this business and to expand our reach and expand what we're capable of doing here at the For Liberty Network. Without AI, I don't know if we could pull off as complicated a 3-day documentary film shoot as we are with just me and Brad Beckman, right? We need robot arms. But I did this mental health check, and the interesting thing that it concluded after answering a series of questions and pulling on its memory of what it knows about me, it said that the reason that it knows that I'm not crazy or a psychopath is because I asked if I'm okay. It was the act of checking in on your own mental health, that of doing an appraisal on yourself. That was the sign of sanity. And I thought that was actually very compelling because there was all of these questions here, and it had pulled all this data and information. And I thought, there would be this complex reasoning, but it was actually just a simple act, not to give it away or anything, the simple act of checking up on yourself. And people don't do that. People don't do that. Some of us do, right? Maybe, you could be high on neuroticism and be overly focused on yourself. A lot of people are. But the question about your own mental health is maybe it hinges on the whole concept of, will you check in on yourself? Right. So psychopathological narcissists is what Jordan Peterson is talking about. Real science questions in the chat, asking some real science questions. Says, this is because narcissists and sociopaths are incapable of introspection. Is it not? I don't know. I think to a certain extent that may be true. It's hard for me to say because I guess it depends on what you think of as introspection, right? If you're a narcissist, then wouldn't you be constantly neurotic and thinking about yourself and constantly looking at yourself almost, but in a more of a, admiration way? You're looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking, maybe how wonderful you are. I wonder if that might be it. I couldn't say. LW78 says, that's crazy. What's up, Latrell? How you doing, brother? It's great to see you, man. I love hanging out with you in the morning, bro. Is this guy a psychopath?
As Paul mentioned about the Supreme Court ruling, do you believe, we saw protests this weekend in Bristol, as Paul mentioned, about the Supreme Court ruling, do you believe a trans woman is a woman?
Look, I think the Supreme Court has answered that question.
So you don't believe a trans woman is a woman?
Look, a woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. So I think it's important that we see the judgment for what it is. It's a welcome step forward. It's real clarity in an area where we did need clarity. I'm pleased it's come about. We need to move and make sure that we now ensure that all guidance is in the right place according to that judgment.
So what is this? This is the Prime Minister of the UK right now, Keir Starmer, and he's being asked about a British Supreme Court decision which declared and clarified that a woman is a biological woman, a man is a biological man. Now, before this court had come out, Keir Starmer is on the record suggesting the opposite. But now that the court decision has been made and the politician thinks that the country might be moving in another direction, the politician suddenly is thankful for the clarity or for something that was very unclear to them before this fact.
What are your words for the trans community who are worried about what this could mean for them?
Well, look, I think it is important that we have clarity about the law. That's what the Supreme Court is there for. So obviously that's an important and welcome step, and we go forward from there. Yeah. Probably a sociopath, right? He used to think women could have a penis. But when a judge said that a woman can't have a penis, I now don't think that women can have a penis, right? That's the sociopath. Here's a sociopath. Nick Huber says, I was pro-tariffs until about 30 of our clients at somewhere.com canceled searches over the past 3 weeks. Hiring freezes all over the place. Hit me in the pocketbook already. Remove tariffs. Womp womp. Gosh, I didn't realize that these completely retarded policies would hurt me. I thought they were just going to hurt other people. Who cares about what happens to other people? I don't have any feelings for other people. I don't think about other people. There's just me. There's only me. It's all about me. It's a me. It's an I. There's only me. There's only I. I was pro-tariffs until about 30 of our clients canceled searches over the past 3 weeks. There's hiring freezes all over the place. It's hit me in the pocketbook. Remove the tariffs. Oh, wah, wah. There's only me. I only care if it affects me. Psychopath or sociopath? Here's the misfit patriot. And Jordan Peterson is having this conversation about sociopaths and psychopaths, specifically kind of pointing fingers at some on the online right in the anonymous spheres. And the Misfit Patriot posts this 2 days ago, and it causes a huge stir. He says, I'm okay with as many dead kids as it takes to stop Hamas. No, you must stop it's dead babies. A paradox, a most intriguing paradox. A paradox. Remember earlier when we were talking about what would happen when genetically leftist people join a rightist movement? You have people doing what the Misfit Patriot says here. He says, you people sound like woke leftists trying to make an emotional argument so you can argue from a position of moral superiority. Yes, thank you. They are, Misfit Patriot. They are genetic leftists who have joined the Republican Party and do things like cry about, what about the dead babies? And they ban red food dye number 5. Right, genetically leftist people infecting the right. The question is, how many dead babies to stop Hamas? How many dead babies would it take for you to stop your behavior? Well, here's the thing, guys. I don't. It's not like you want dead babies, right? I don't want to take the dead babies like a pitchfork
get them off the truck with a pitchfork. How many dead babies can you get off the truck with a pitchfork? No, I don't want to do what the Japanese did during the rape of Nanking when they took babies and they played catch with them onto their bayonets. That's not what I'm saying, right? But what I do want to do is I want to try and stop the people who are trying to kill me or my family or my people, right? Or, Americans, I would like to have a national defense that protects American citizens. One of the privileges, I think, of American citizenship should be that you benefit from the enormous amount of money that goes into the Department of Defense to defend American lives and property and interests, right? But how many dead kids would it take to defend American lives and property and interests, right? No, hopefully no more than necessary, but if it's going to be their dead kids or our dead kids, guess what? I'm not it's going to be their dead kids, not my dead kids, right? I'm not some goddamn hippie who's healed the world, make it a better place. For war is hell, war is shit, war is disgusting. It cannot be reformed, and this is war. That's what they're engaged in over there. Hamas has declared war. They launched the attack on October 7th, and now they're going to reap the consequences of such. If only they would stop standing behind the babies, there would be fewer dead babies. If they would come out in the open and fight us like men on the field of battle and prove their worth, then maybe there would be fewer dead babies. But they choose not to do that, and it is unfortunate. But the moral culpability, if there is any, is on the head of those who started shit. What is the FAFO? F around and find out? Right? This is what Alexander Datepsych has to say about this. He says, this was a very common and normal attitude among conservatives. This whole, I'm okay with as many dead kids as it takes to stop Hamas. Alexander, dating psychology guy, he is a cognitive and behavioral neuroscience expert, he claims. I'm going to get him on the show and we'll find out. Says that attitude about dead kids is very common, very normal among conservatives 20 years ago. I remember it being a typical sentiment following 9/11 and during the Iraq War. Based on the comments, it seems like the younger generation of conservatives on the right has adopted the morality of the left. High empathy for out-groups, even if they are enemy out-groups, right? The whole like MS-13 gang, right? The left, just like here in the United States, we have people on the left who have more empathy for MS-13 than they do for people in the United States who are being victimized by these gang members. And you see this on the conservative right these days. These young people who have this weird out-group empathy for the children of the Palestinians who are unfortunately reaping the whirlwind due to the policies enacted by the government that they elected and then once and then never had to vote for again, Hamas. This Alexander says a lot of people on the right would have been Occupy Wall Street protesters if they were young in the early 2000s rather than hawkish neoconservatives. But what has essentially been the cultural domination by the left has resulted in the right adopting left-wing rhetoric. Wow, how mean. That's a war crime. Meanwhile, we have people posting that they want an America of only 100 million people. Fit check, mental fit check, history test, population, demographics. How many people does the United States currently have? Right? Do you know how many? Right? An America of 100 million, right? We have about 333 million, I think, by the last census. It's probably more. Or they want to go back to the Bronze Age, whatever. Right? But it's hard to reconcile. I can't tolerate war casualties with, I want an ethnic cleansing of minorities in my own nation. Consider that, right? I can't tolerate war casualties, but also I want an ethnic cleansing of minorities in my own nation. Right? This guy's smart. Alexander, I'm going to try and get him on my show. What do you guys think? Should we talk to him? 350 million. Thank you, Razbello. Right? Those are those leftist traits, the genetic leftist traits. We have raised what appears to be around $10 towards the $75 goal. It's not bad, but it's not on track for us to unlock the bonus content today, let me tell you. Would you like to see today's mini documentary? If you would, then make sure you drop a Rumble rant, any amount, to help support the Wake Up America show. If I were you, what I would do is go to 4libertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Check out the new Gulf of the Summer of Freedom collection. I've got some new Gulf of America merch, not the Cinco, but the taco, the new, oh yes, check it out. Trump, Taco, Fiesta, Gulf of America shirt, taco. Lorde. Gulf of America with Donald Trump wearing a sombrero. Cinco de Mayo is coming up. Eating a delicious taco. Donald Trump's Gulf of America. Trump Taco Fiesta Gulf of America t-shirt. You will be the most cool white guy at the Cinco de Mayo festival, drinking margaritas, eating guacamole. Guacamole. Get it at 4libertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Quest Fanning says dance. So we dance. Thank you very much, sir. So we've raised 11 towards the $75 goal. If you people go in there and buy a couple, what do you mean by you people? If you guys head over to 4libertyshop.com, what do you mean guys? There's some girls here too. Go to 4libertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Get yourself a Trump Taco Fiesta Gulf of America t-shirt, and when we unlock that bonus content, you won't have to watch commercials while I go pee for Liberty. We'll be right back, guys. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian, and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government. Get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
You also set that conversation up, but it poked up and made itself manifest in that conversation. And the issue is, how do you identify the psychopathic pretenders? And it's even worse now, and then make a barrier, right? Now, the right was calling for the left to do that for decades, and they didn't, and they couldn't, and the left is not good at drawing barriers, partly temperamentally. The right is somewhat better, but there's no shortage of monstrosity there. And the question is, how do you draw the line? And that's kind of what I was, because I've been watching these right-wing, they're not right-wing, these psychopathic types manipulate the edge of the conservative movement for their own gain. And a lot of that's cloaked in anti-Semitic guise. There's plenty of anti-Semitism on the left too, by the way. So it's not unique to the right.
Well, but particularly now.
Yes, particularly now. And so, you've let your curiosity guide you, your curiosity and your desire for knowledge, this quest, you've let that guide you as a podcaster. And by the way, I'm trying to work through exactly the same sort of thing. How do you know, given your radical increase in stature over the last 10 years, how do you know when your curiosity and even your skepticism about the fact that things aren't the way that people say they are, because that's certainly been demonstrated in the last 10 years, how should anyone decide what guardrails to put up? Like, what do you look for? Do you have a conceptual system worked out for that? Like, because what you also said.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show, and that's on the For Liberty Network. I'm so glad and thankful to have you here. Don't forget to click that like button. We'd love to have you be a regular guest on the Wake Up America show, and if you click the follow button, you'll get a notification when we go live. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time, and I would be honored if you would become a regular guest, become like a Clementine or a Luke Sacker. I got your email yesterday, Luke. Responded to our quiz we posted about which founding father are you. T-Mill22 is hanging out with us as well. She's a regular. Quest Fanning, he's actually going to be hanging out with us in Washington, D.C. next week. Super excited about the APDC Liberty Tour. Maybe Raz Mello will become a regular guest. I certainly hope so. Maybe we can talk Raz you up. Drake495, he started to become a regular too. What's up, brother? Glad to have you. It's totally free to click the like button. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Let's see if there's any text there real quick. Razmataz, yes. Somebody said, I sent you a Breaking Points video in XDM. Dang it. I don't know what that is, and I'll have to check it. I don't know what Breaking Points is. Thanks, Razmello. We appreciate you. For JJ4884, he's a regular as well. It's nice to see you, brother. We have raised about $15 towards the $75 goal to unlock the bonus content. $60 more will unlock it. So if 2 people go and buy Donald Trump taco t-shirts, that will unlock the bonus content. You guys can see the mini documentary. If we don't unlock the bonus content, it goes away forever and nobody gets to see it, which sucks. But that's a really good way to introduce FOMO, right? FOMO, fear of missing out. Don't miss out. Drake495 says he's having a good morning, getting some news and libertarian views while I start work. Can I get a hell yeah from a boy? Drake495. The quiz concluded the dad bod baboon is President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho. Oops. I don't remember that from the quiz. So Jordan Peterson goes on Joe Rogan yesterday. He goes on Fox News with Sean Hannity. He's talking about psychopaths and what are known in the mental health community as cluster B individuals. These are new terms, many of them to me. Stephanie probably knows more about this topic than I do. Definitely, she knows more about this topic than I do. She would be perfect for this. Maybe I'll bring it up on Friday if it's something we're still talking about then. Jordan Peterson is talking about psychopaths and other cluster B individuals who use ideology for power, wealth, fame, or in some cases for sadistic pleasure. How many communists, proud communists that are out there on X or social networks these days are twisted sadists who only adopt communism? How many communist figures from history were just sadists who wanted, remember sadism? Sadism is when you enjoy hurting other people. Masochism is when you enjoy being hurt. A sadomasochist is someone who enjoys hurting people and enjoys being hurt by people, right? Not typically what you might consider a healthy, overall healthy, although what you do in your own bedroom, as long as it's separated from the rest of the world and it's completely consensual. LaBelle U says, what is this DC trip? I live in Metro DC and I would like to learn more. Hell yes. We do have like 2 more tickets left. And you could bring unlimited kids with each ticket. So, maybe not 100,000 kids or anything like that. And no dead babies for sure. Austin, why did you do this? Yes. But next week, Stephanie and I are leading a tour in Washington, D.C. It's the AP D.C. Liberty Tour. I'm AP. We're going to D.C. and I'm going to give a Liberty Tour. We're going to meet with my congressman, take a picture, get a Capitol tour. We're going to go to the Jefferson Memorial, and AI Thomas Jefferson will be there with us to answer questions. My child Hazel's going to be there. Me and Stephanie, we're all going to go for a little tour. We've also got lots of fun activities with food. Where I'm going to take you to my favorite restaurant in the DC area that's in Ballston. I think you probably know where that is. And next to the Ballston Mall. It's a great Peruvian restaurant. You're going to love it. Delicious. So AI Thomas Jefferson. We're going to the U.S. History Museum. We're going to meet my congressman, and we're going to go to Mount Vernon because it's actually next week. It's Revolutionary War weekend, and they're doing reenactments at Mount Vernon. So if you're interested in joining us, Amy J. Ease is going to be there. Cannot wait. If you're interested in joining us, then check out all of the tour details. I'll pull it up on the screen for you very, very briefly. If you go to forlibertyshop.com, you can see on the very front page, scroll down underneath the Gulf of America collection, the APDC Liberty Tour, May 1st to the 3rd. You can find out all the details. And if you want to buy a ticket, just head on over there, buy yourself a ticket. And you just need 1 per adult. But again, kids are free. So we're going to make it as kid-friendly as possible. The itinerary is up and out there. The Facebook Messenger group will go out soon for everyone who is a part of the group so we can all coordinate. And if you have any questions, just, hit us up. Send us a text. Drew Van Runkle says he got his Gulf of America shirt yesterday from the shop. 11 out of 10. Highly recommend. Yes. Isn't this fun, guys? This little subculture that we've created around the Wake Up America show, and we've got our own shop and everything like that. So yeah, don't forget, forlibertyshop.com, Gulf of America merch, the best in the world, plus the AP DC Liberty Tour, all of that good stuff. So LaBelle U, we hope to see you there. That'd be awesome. More the merrier. But I'm pretty sure we only got like 2 tickets left. So once they're gone, they're gone. And the tour is full because I have to call my congressman and tell him, we got 2 more people or whatever, and 2 more kids. So let us know. Rap. Rap bop bop ba da bop bop.
Concerned because the evolved strategies that we have for dealing with these psychopathic narcissistic types don't work well online. And so the psychopaths can get away with their terrible manipulations online, and they can find like-minded people, and they can escape from any reputational consequences. And so there's always been psychopaths. Those are the Pharisees, for example, that Christ points to, the religious pretenders. Those are the people who use God's name in vain and claim moral virtue and even religious devotion. Well, all they're doing is feathering their own nests and furthering their own narrow interests. And the web, social media, anonymity, enables them to organize and also hides them much more effectively. And this is a problem in religious organizations, it's a problem in political organizations, and it pathologizes the whole culture. Most people, 80% of Americans agree on virtually everything. And then there's these fringe people, and they're not political. They're psychopathological narcissists who cloak themselves in political guise. And we all have to learn to distinguish between the political and the psychological.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Who is using politics and who has a pathology that is trying to manipulate us all? Psychopathological narcissists who cloak themselves in political disguise. They care nothing about politics. These are sadists who enjoy hurting other people. They have narcissistic personality traits, or they have a disorder. Right? They use political roles, ideologies, or platforms to mask their self-serving behaviors and psychological issues. You want to know what one of the best ways to find out, to see someone who has these traits? It's someone who is almost never taking a position with which a large group of people would disagree with. And even if that contradicts something that they have said maybe 3 to 4 years ago. Now, some people have, serious, road to Damascus moments, to get all biblical here, and change their minds about things. Saul, Saul, why dost thou persecuteth me? Go up, bald head. Why are there people who actually have these chains of hearts? Sure. But it's something that you should watch. People who can change on a dime their political stripes, because the ideology is to them just, again, it's a way to fit in. I've seen this all the time. I've seen this, in 25 years I've been doing this. And there's one thing that is constant, and that is change. And usually the people who come along who claim that they are, devotees of libertarianism, or who knows, Milton Friedman or Hayek or whatever. I'm a Mises guy in the Libertarian Party, or I'm a left libertarian Gary Johnsonite, right? And then all of a sudden, 3 years later, they're nothing of the sort. They're something completely different. We saw this with Christopher Cantwell. Perfect example. For those who don't know Christopher Cantwell, he became famous for a brief period because he was known as the crying Nazi of Charlottesville. If you all remember the Charlottesville race riots that went on there. And Christopher Cantwell eventually got raided by the feds, had all these drugs and illegal guns, and was a psychopath, making threats, doing all kinds of dangerous shit, committing crimes. But before he was a crying Nazi, he was a hardcore right-wing libertarian in New Hampshire, going around he was actually featured on the Colbert Report back in the day, when he was like the parking meters. They would go around harassing meter maids and filling the meters with quarters and things, right? But I mean, classic psychopath. And the ideology was a way for him to get attention. It's a way for unexceptional people to feel exceptional, right? It's a way for people to have, as I think Jordan Peterson said in this interview. I don't know if he said this at the very end here, but I mean, it's a way for them. It's a way for unexceptional people to have unearned social clout, because people feel like politics is a way for them to get attention. I mean, think about how many mass murderers throughout history. Che Guevara, perfect example, a psychopath, a person who was a sadist. He loved hurting people. He tortured people. La Cabana prison, look it up. They called him the butcher of La Cabana. Gays, jazz musicians, people associated with things that are American, right? Che Guevara tortured these people, right? But communism for Che was a way to make a rather unexceptional man feel important or feel exceptional, and an unexceptional man who enjoyed hurting people, torturing people. Pol Pot. Stalin, perfect example, a very unexceptional man who, through brute force, through theft, through rape, through murder, achieved the commanding heights of power. Stalin was nothing compared to Trotsky. Trotsky was an intellectual, but what did Trotsky get for being a nerd? He got what we do to nerds today. He gets the ice pick in the back of the brain. The stupid kids make fun of the smart kids. And under Soviet Russia, the strong kids put ice pick in the brain of the smart kids. You know what I'm saying? Real science questions with the real hot take says Che was a psycho. He executed people on the spot, went mad with power, and yet so many lefties worship him and call him virtuous. Yes, because like as we were saying earlier on the show, there are a higher number of instances of mental illness on the left. But remember, now that so many from the left have come into the Republican Party, right, proudly non-conservatives, right, your RFKs, your Maha moms, your crunchy granola conspiratards, right, as you get these lefty Dems in there, right, what do they want? They want power and they want authority to enact their desire to force other people to adhere. They take these feminine qualities of desire for order. We must have things in place, and they must be. We can't have any insecurity, so we must demand security. So we must marshal the men in our lives to enact the laws and we henpeck the men to do things like pass bills that will give $5,000 to new mothers. You let him hit it raw. Now you're a single mom. You get $5,000. It's from the government. You let him hit it raw. Now you're a single mom. You're going to hit it rich. $5,000 cash, right? The White House has been hearing out a chorus of ideas in recent weeks for persuading Americans to get married and have more children. It's an early sign that the Trump administration will embrace a new cultural agenda from the left. From the left, excuse me, I'm sorry, I was reading the comments there. Raz Mello he's looking it up. I love it when they look it up. Look me up. Luke Sacker, and they're all talking about Christopher Cantwell. Oh man, I really want to read that chat, but I can't because we haven't unlocked the bonus content, guys. So I can't go take a break and cheat and read your awesome text messages. Unlock the bonus content, guys. I think it's like $40 away at this point until we hit the $75 goal. So drop those Rumble rants, guys, and go to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. So $5,000 cash baby bonus to every American mother after delivery. Now, they say every American mother. So this is the left coming in to the right and advocating for these kinds of positions. Right? Anna Paulina Luna in the Republican Party would have been a Democrat 20 years ago, right? Advocating for giving new moms $5,000. And as a breeder myself, I could see like the jealous hands, right? But just how about don't steal the money from me in the first place? How about lower my taxes because people like myself, these small and medium businesses, and we're keeping America afloat. We're paying taxes. We're not just paying our own taxes. I have to pay my own taxes and I have to pay other people's taxes too. I have an employee. I got to pay his taxes. I got to pay my taxes. I got to pay his taxes, right? Employee. If you've only ever been an employee and you've never signed the front of a check, let me tell you, you got to pay more taxes than just your own taxes. Then every time you make a sale, guess what? I got to make sure I got to file those taxes. You pay those taxes, the sales taxes, and then I got to file those. Then I got to pay time, which is money, to file those taxes with the state government to make sure I pay those sales taxes. And woe be to me if I have economic nexus in Texas and New York and California. You better be filing your sales taxes out there too. So much that you need an army of accountants, right? But $5,000 if you have a baby. Oh, well, thank you, government, right? But this is the left, right? This is the left. $5,000 cash baby bonus. Just don't take it from us in the first place. All of that. So what about fathers who are raising children on his own? Does he qualify? No, absolutely not. How about gay men who want kids? Nelson! You. Ask the chat. Nelson, thanks so much for the donation, brother. We appreciate that. So 30 more dollars and we unlock today's mini documentary bonus content. I hope we'll do it. I think we're going to be pretty close today because the Rumble Ranch are kind of slow. Can you bless me with something?
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, God.
Money-wise, yes. It's so much more fun to go to forlibertyshop.com and buy boxes of coffee because then you get something that appears on your doorstep. We have Wake Up America Show mugs. We call it the Grift Shop out of love. It's fun and it's funny. Go to forlibertyshop.com. If you've got a little patriot in your life, you see our Calvin the Coolest President stuff, check that out. Go to forlibertyshop.com. And let me tell you a story about a man named Cliff Poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. Said, California is not the place you ought to be. So he picked up a truck and he moved to Pennsylvania. Are you ready to take back control of our local elections? That's where that improv comes in, Andy. I want to introduce to you guys Joe 1000, a bold initiative from the Citizens Alliance of Pennsylvania and the PA Chase program. Their mission is to elect 1,000 judges of elections across Pennsylvania in 2025 to ensure our elections are run with integrity, transparency, and accountability. Right now, in precincts across the Commonwealth, write-in campaigns are underway for America First Patriots to run for judge of elections. That's an important role. Doesn't sound big, but it is big, and it's easy to win. With just 10 write-in votes and a majority, you can help flip your precinct into a red stronghold. The PA Chase team will provide the training, the data, and the support. You step up and run. It's that simple. If you want to learn more, visit TeamCap. That's CAP, teamcap.com/Joe to find out how to run, support a candidate, or get involved yourself directly. If you want to learn more, visit that website. And if you're ready to help us go all in on winning Pennsylvania again and build the red wall, head to pachase.com to support the ballot chasing efforts to keep the momentum going. This is your moment to take action, step up, run for judge of elections, or head to pachase.com. Help us secure the future of the Republic, one precinct at a time. Thank you, Cliff. We're going to have a buddy from the Citizens Alliance in Idaho this morning at 8:30 a.m. Matt Edwards is going to be joining us here in a little bit less than 10 minutes. So make sure you guys hit that bonus content so you'll be able to see it at minimum at the end of the interview that we are going to do here with Matt Edwards, talking about the corruption on the state level. We can't just focus on the federal stuff every day, but we also need to look at what's happening out there in the bigger, wider world. Donald Trump mulls $5,000 baby bonus for moms in a bid to reverse declining birth rates. Wilfred Riley, he was actually supposed to be on the show this morning, unfortunately had to cancel. I'll try and get him on again. Said, this is just welfare. To be brutally blunt, if we do this, we need some selection mechanism for high IQ, married only, or something similar. Eugenics. I agree. $5,000, right? So, yeah.
A new theory of political psychopathology, and I like it quite a lot.
Is this where the term the woke right comes in?
Yeah, well, Lindsay is pointing at that, but he hasn't got the diagnosis exactly right. So it isn't woke. That's not the issue. It's not exactly.
I think
one
what
level.
they're talking about is like similar types of behavior.
He is talking about that. Yeah, no. What he's pointing.
Woke just lets you clarify in your head. Oh, it's like that.
Yeah, but the problem is
it's like Antifa.
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is that argument.
I mean, ask yourself this: if a $5,000 baby bonus idea had come out of a President Elizabeth Warren, would you support it? Of course not.
Is predicated.
But we're talking about, he's talking about woke right, woke left. We're talking about the horseshoe theory of where these authoritarian extremists on left and right are coming from. Jordan Peterson is discussing this right now. Yes, it's authoritarian to steal $5,000 from me and give it to an unwed mother, a low IQ, unwed mother who has no social status, who just wants the cash and is going to raise another. What was the quote? They used to sterilize people in the United States. Did you know this? And there was some court decision at the time where they sterilized a woman who was like low IQ, and they were like, and it was like this generation of bastards or something that they've unleashed. They've unleashed enough generation of like idiots on our society because they had whatever it was. Okay, what's the quote from the judge who consented to a sterilization procedure? Since sometimes my American history, like I know the event, but like the details can be a little bit hazy. There's a procedure with a quote about unleashing retarded people on society. No more. What was the context and exact quote? We're going to get to Matt Edwards in just a second. I hope he's listening to the show so he understands that I've got to talk about the retard baby attack from the judge in American history. What's the quote from the judge who consented to a sterilization procedure with a quote about unleashing retarded people on society? What was the context in the exact quote? Grok is having trouble with this, as I thought it might, because it's a very touchy subject, and it doesn't want to answer that. And either that or it's broken. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here it is. This is it. Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., 1927 Supreme Court case, Buck versus Bell. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. wrote the majority opinion upholding the forced sterilization of Carrie Buck, a woman deemed, quote, feeble-minded. The exact quote from Holmes is, "It is better for all the world if instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime or to let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. The principle that sustains compulsory vaccination is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes." Yikes. That's scary, right? 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. Yikes. The lovely progressive era, Amy. Yes, you got it, right? Buck versus Bell, landmark Supreme Court decision that upheld Virginia's 1924 Eugenical Sterilization Act. So we won't be sterilizing any mongoloids. We won't be sterilizing the what he calls the imbeciles, right? We won't be actively preventing them, but we're not going to fund them either. We haven't unlocked the bonus content. Don't hate me, guys. It's American history. Hate Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in the Supreme Court, 1927, Buck v. Bell. Look it up. I don't make this shit up. What do you think this is? The Joe Rogan podcast? Oh, Austin. We'll be right back. Unlock that bonus content, guys, so you can see it, the mini documentary, before the end of the interview. We'll be right back with Matt Edwards.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that
a new theory of political psychopathology, and I like it quite a lot.
Is this where the term the woke right comes in?
Yeah, well, Lindsay is pointing at that, but he hasn't got the diagnosis exactly right. So it isn't woke. That's not the issue. It's not exactly.
I think
He's one
what
level.
they're talking about is like similar types of behavior.
He is talking about that. Yeah, no.
But
What he's pointing.
Woke just lets you clarify in your head. Oh, it's like that.
Yeah, but the problem is
it's like Antifa.
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is that argument is predicated on the claim that the ideas are the problem, like the woke ideas, for example, on the right or the left. But that's not the problem. The problem is that 4 to 5% of the population, something like that, is cluster B, that's the DSM-5 terms, histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, psychopathic, or they have dark tetrad traits, they're Machiavellian, they're sadistic. That's about 4%. Okay, so the question is, how do these people maneuver? And the answer is they go to where the power is, and they adopt those ideas, and they put themselves even on the forefront of that.
Right.
But the ideas are completely irrelevant.
Right.
All they're doing is they're the Pharisees. They're the modern version of the Pharisees. They're the people who use God's name in vain, right? As they proclaim moral virtue.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whether it's right or left or Christian or Jewish or Islam. They invade the idea space, and then they use those ideas as false weapons to advance their narcissistic advantage.
Psychopathological narcissists who cloak themselves in political disguise, narcissistic personality traits. Man, there's some big words. Disorders, essentially. Brain disorders, mental illness, right? And then they use their psychopathic traits in political roles. Politicians, ideologies, or platforms to mask their self-serving behaviors and their psychological issues. We also call them politics. The fight for liberty on the federal level is most of the time what we focus here on the Wake Up America show, so we can reach the broadest audience. But isn't the real fight for liberty that's happening out there mostly happening on the state level? Matt Edwards is the executive director of the Citizens Alliance of Idaho. He's joining us live this morning to talk about the Idaho legislature, some of the bills that they passed for liberty, and the Idaho Medical Freedom Act, and a few other things as well. He's not a psychopathic authoritarian. He's one of us. What's happening? Good morning. Nice to see you, Matt.
Oh,
or maybe he is.
Be careful. I'm a fellow breeder, so you never know, right?
Yeah. So maybe you want that $5,000. They're going to hand it out to the women. So, if your wife divorces you, she'll take the $5,000 and run. But
I don't know. I remember the ACLU tweeting something that you don't need to be a woman to breed.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes.
I still think I'm out, though.
Yes, there you go. Maybe we could just rent a baby, just defraud the government. Everybody else is doing it. Why go through the hassle of taking care of a child? Speaking about fraud, the greatest fraud that was ever perpetrated on the American people, perhaps, the COVID-19 hysteria and the pandemic authoritarianism. We had in Missouri a rather light touch of it, but some of our metropolitan areas were worse, obviously, but we did have to fight here on the local level here in Missouri to overturn some of the laws and rules. They did try and close down churches here in Missouri, and we had to stand up against it. And frankly, we're still trying to pass laws to stop
any future tyranny that might happen like COVID-19. Apparently you guys out in Idaho fighting the same fight. Tell us about it.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Austin. Similar situation. I mean, down in the big city, or the biggest city here in Idaho, of course, is Boise. So they had the same kind of mentality that you'd find in New York, Los Angeles, Portland. But because we were in Idaho, we didn't have that sort of overarching authoritarian Cuomo, Gavin Newsom-esque clampdown that we saw in those places. But obviously there was still all of these recommendations that were being handed down, from the CDC, the NIH, all these experts talking to experts within the states. So you remember Deborah Birx traveling the country, talking to all of the different states and all of the health officials inside the state. So a lot of the, in fact, all of the cues that, city councils and counties and school boards, all the cues they were taking were from these unelected bureaucrats, these health experts. And so they would say, based on what they're recommending, we are going to initiate lockdowns and masking and 6-foot distancing and closing of businesses. So it didn't really fall in the hands of our governor here, Brad Little, who's not necessarily, at the forefront of liberty by any stretch of the imagination. However, it was never a statewide thing like we saw elsewhere. So that left it up to the people to really fight at the local level and they did. We did. I mean, we were showing up at school board meetings and city council meetings where those edicts were being handed down from.
It's great to hear that it's not just in Missouri where we have patriots fighting against that tyranny. We do have some lawmakers in Missouri who have really taken the lead on fighting against the types of closures that we see. Kathy Jo Loy, she's a Missouri state representative who's come in strong in pushing a bill to try and prevent the government of Missouri from closing churches ever again. And it's a wonderful thing to see. The Idaho Medical Freedom Act, a ban on mask mandates, telling local health districts they cannot do all things, and they have to base their recommendations on actual scientific data. Well, that sounds good, but the only problem is that we can't even seem to agree on what actually is the science. So what? So Anthony Fauci trusts the science? What kind of standards? How will the Idaho Medical Freedom Act sort of hold politicians to scientific standards, especially when these psychopathological narcissists don't tell us that Anthony Fauci is the science?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think that was one of those compromises in language that bill went through. See, the thing here in Idaho is these bills, the ones that you just mentioned, we're in 2025. And the legislature is done. We're a part-time legislature in Idaho, so they wrapped up at the beginning of April. And but since 2020 itself, when they came back for a special session, and every year since, they've been trying to pass these bills that would say you can't, the government can't do these things. You can't shut down. You can't put in place. You can't arrest people for singing their hymns outside in the public square, which is what happened in Moscow when a church gathering happened outside and they started singing worship songs and the police showed up because no one was wearing masks and they had a gathering, right? If they wanted to protest BLM style, I'm sure that would have been fine, but singing hymns in the streets, completely illegal. I mean, that's just atrocious when you think about it, really, right? And so these bills, a lot of these bills that would, they wouldn't even make it out of committee. And so they'd come back and they would try and reword it, or they would just make it harsher and say, well, we're going to do this again and again and again. And it got to the point where you actually had legislators saying, are we really voting on this again? I thought we passed it. And kind of gaslighting everybody, like COVID's over. We don't need any of this stuff. But the people just wouldn't relent. And, our organization helps support folks who want to pass these types of bills. And so over the years, we've chipped away at the establishment stronghold in our capital and have elected conservatives that just put the numbers over the top. And so to your point about the science, that particular bill, the language was clear that health districts they were allowed to do all things to mitigate any sort of public health risk. And that phrase, all things, is kind of scary. I mean, you're allowing a health district to recommend or mandate or just say all things. And let's be very clear, they may not be the police themselves, but because they are the health district, any recommendation they give pretty much has the power of a mandate, because that is what the school districts or the courts or whoever is going to look to in order to enact their whatever rule they want to enact. So they struck out the word all things and instead said that they must do reasonable things that are backed by scientific data. And if you wanted, if at the very least you wanted to challenge the masking mandates that were going on back then, there was no scientific data that supported that particular. They could say it all they want, but there was no scientific data that supported the fact or the alleged fact that masks would help stop the spread and any of that. So you could see a little bit why there's a little bit of a compromise there with the language but at least it says in statute scientific data. So someone would have to present that data.
Well, that would be interesting. I remember that there was a debate specifically about the efficacy of masks that had surrounded on studies that had shown that it was effective, but in very closed environments, like essentially like, if you have a doctor who's going to perform surgery on you, would you want them to wear masks? Yes, because of course in a hospital environment where someone sterilizes and washes their hands, then it works. But when they do it in like mass studies where people are outdoors touching things, touching their faces, not being fitted for masks, right? That really that masks only worked in the most ideal of ideal environments. Then the people, unfortunately, because I think of the failures of the departments of education and because of the failures of public education in this country, people aren't even able to understand how to read studies and how to understand that even studies that have come out can be biased, even if they've been through double-blind approved testing, Matt. You will find that some studies will conflict with one another. And so sometimes those conclusions, they have to be drawn along political lines in terms of like, what is the science or what does the policy come down to? It's going to be the government experts against the other belligerents in this question. And typically the government has the blunt instrument and the ability to use force on us. So that's why winning elections is probably a very important thing. If anything, probably the most important thing we do is not just the bills themselves, the policies, but just getting the right people in there to make the decisions, to make the call. Because, I mean, so much of what is done is unitary executive action. I don't know about you and your governor situation out there, but, we actually have got a particularly good governor right now. He's not perfect. Our previous governor was not perfect. But tell us a little bit about Idaho's legislature and your governor, and talk to us a little bit about the role that elections play in placing good policy.
Yeah, I mean that's great to hear what you have out there, and I think we're kind of in a similar situation, especially right now, because these bills that we're speaking of, and I can go into the Idaho Medical Freedom Act a little bit more too. This is a bill that the governor actually vetoed. And so there was a lot of nerves because the legislature over the past 3 to 5 years has grown tremendously more conservative, and so that means you're going to see a lot more conservative bills get through and get to the governor's desk. Now, traditionally, if one slipped through maybe 5 or 6 years ago, he would veto it, or it would be so watered down by the time it got to him that it wouldn't matter whether or not he did anything. And now you have this sense where like he got a ton of conservative bills. I posted on X at the close of the legislature an entire list of things that got through, and they only get through when if the governor signs it, and he signed every single one of them. So as long as he gets being delivered conservative legislation, he's not going to sit there and veto every single one. He's got to sign it. And but one of the ones that he vetoed was the Idaho Medical Freedom Act. And basically what this said was an update to our language in our code that already addressed specifically coronavirus So this was something that was passed early a couple of years ago, the Coronavirus Stop Act, that said, government can't do anything to force you to do any medical interventions in relation to coronavirus, right? So this is very specific to the pandemic. So it's probably a good reason why it went through again, is because we probably won't experience specifically a coronavirus pandemic. It's going to be something else. Well, that something else is what prompted a rewording of this language to make it say all medical interventions for any reason. The government, this is what the Idaho Medical Freedom Act, the government cannot mandate a medical intervention for you to participate in society. So whatever that means to you, there's no government agency, no school board, no city, no health district, nothing, no courtroom can force you to undergo a medical intervention. And the bill goes on to define what a medical intervention is, and it's an injection, a procedure, something that you would think is an actual medical intervention. The interesting thing about this bill, though, Austin, which might ruffle your feathers and some of the folks out there, is that it extends to businesses. Now we're telling businesses what to do, and so a business cannot force you to undergo a medical intervention in order to be employed or to participate in their service. That got a lot of pushback, as I would imagine, and which I had similarly concerns about it. And there was a lot of debate in the legislature about this, but how it kind of passed through was the fact that, like, we're talking about medical intervention. We're not talking about, oh, you got to wear a mask if you want to come into my shop, right? You gotta I can't throw you out of my store if you're walking around, sneezing and coughing. That's not a medical intervention if you're asking someone to leave or if you don't want to perform a service for them. But if you're telling people, in order to come in here, in order for you to participate, I need to know whether or not you've had a vaccine. I need to know whether or not you've undergone a procedure that I would want to require for you to walk into my place of business or to do business with me. And that's a simple matter of privacy. Like, we don't, our skin doesn't turn color when we take an injection, maybe temporarily, but there's no way to tell, really, right? Unless you're invading somene's privacy.
Yeah, don't tell RFK Jr. I'm speaking to Matt Edwards this morning. He's the executive director for the Citizens Alliance of Idaho. Glad to have him here. I love this other story that you shared with me. There's been some national news coverage on this one out from Idaho. There's the mayor of Boise, who has been defying a new law about flags. I love that we fight over flags in this country. About flags being flown on government property. So apparently Idaho passed a law saying only U.S. and Idaho flags are allowed. What kind of flags does the Boise, Idaho mayor want to fly?
Oh, she's got this big giant rainbow flag.
The gay flags. Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. The gayer the better, right? We're all homosexuals now. Boise, Idaho. We're gay.
That's right.
What's the story here?
Yeah. So she's been flying this flag outside City Hall. I think there's 3 flagpoles. So you got the American flag on one, you got the Idaho flag on the other. And then normally you would have like maybe the POW flag, or maybe you'd fly a flag for a specific event or something that's going. Maybe there's a big game, so you're flying the BSU flag, for the college that's there in town. But she's been throwing up the pride flag, and it's been up there for years. And then they'll, during the month of June, of course, they're using all of the city poles, and all the city buildings have, they're flying flags everywhere. So, the conservatives in Boise were kind of getting fed up with this, because even though the alphabet mafia over there likes to say that this flag is all about inclusion, it really isn't. It's about division. It's about, separating out our society into one small section and celebrating them. And the only really unifying flag, or the one that should be the unifying flag, is the American flag. And so they said, well, in that case, let's just say that a government building can only fly the American flag or the Idaho flag. or any other approved maybe civic type flags for certain events. But the pride flag is a divisive flag, and it shall not fly. And so once that went into effect upon the governor's signature, the Boise mayor not only kept flying the flag. She was originally flying just the one that just has the straight stripes across it. She took that down and threw up the new one that has that little trans triangle formation on the flag. So she's totally defying it. The conservatives are going nuts out there. There was an activist guy who, in the middle of the night, climbed the pole and hung an appeal to heaven flag, and then took a trash bag and wrapped the trash bag around the pride flag as it was still hanging up there. So he didn't remove the flag; he just wrapped it in a trash bag. And of course, the next day, all that was taken back and fixed. So I like what you said. We're always fighting over our flags in this country, and this is no different.
Yeah. Well, I guess last question here before I let you go, Matt. On that $5,000 baby question, $5,000 for every baby. Listen, I think we got our tax credit this year, but this would be something more like a subsidy. What do you think? $5,000 per baby born in America could get in order to try and get a baby boom going. What do you say?
Can it be like in gold or crypto? I'm thinking maybe that might be a little bit more of a bigger investment. Who's the guy in Hungary, Austin? Is it Hungary that's giving families, they don't have to pay income tax for years if they keep having kids? Mm-hmm. Something like that?
Yes. Yeah. So $5,000 is what is being proposed per like welfare handout, essentially. This is the Republicans proposing this.
Yeah. Are they though? They are, aren't they?
Matt Edwards, where can we find out more about your work, man? You're doing a great job out there in Idaho.
Well, I appreciate it. You can, if you're in Idaho or interested in what we're doing, you go to citizensallianceidaho.org, or you can find me on X, True Matt Edwards.
There we go, True Matt Edwards. We appreciate your time this morning, sir. We're glad to have you. Matt Edwards, Executive Director of Citizens Alliance of Idaho. Good stuff. You guys, you did it. You unlocked...
Thank you, Austin.
You did it. You unlocked that bonus content. Thank you to Matt. We appreciate him very much. You did a great job today. It was a great show. It went by really fast, right? Jordan Peterson, I just posted this a few minutes ago, said yesterday, the psychopathological narcissists, right? These 3 to 4% of the population, the ones who seek power, the ones who desire to lord over us all. They're online. I'm watching. I'm reading right now their responses over on X, and they are having an antibiotic response. Yeah, the lunatics, the psychos, the ones who like wear a human skin, they're reacting to what Jordan Peterson said yesterday on Joe Rogan. We can see you over there, Bert Crash. I see your chat on the chats. I posted, you can see the psychopathological narcissists having an antibiotic response to Jordan Peterson's Rogan appearance. They who cloak themselves in political disguise are individuals with narcissistic personality traits or disorders. There's something wrong with them. They use political roles, ideologies, whether it's libertarianism, communism, socialism, centrism, whateverism, in order to mask their self-serving behaviors and their psychological issues. Insane in the membrane, insane in the brain. These are the evil kids. They seek power in order to lord over all of us. And they're going to fight like hell when we shine a light on them. They're going to lash out. They're going to cheat. They're going to lie about us. They're going to fight like hell. They're going to try and deceive us. They're going to gaslight us. Right? It's going to be like a political demonic exorcism. And if we don't hold them accountable, if we don't ostracize them from the public sphere, they'll only swap their human skins to some other ideology to continue their blood-sucking, parasitic grift on those of us who are mentally healthy. I thought it was a good show. I think you guys definitely earned the bonus content. I think we were only a few bucks away. If somebody wants to stuff a few dollar bills in the tip jar before you leave, that would be much appreciated. But I'm going to say bonus content unlocked. We were like $7 away. It's fine. You can have it. Thank you guys for all you do. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Don't forget, exit. Speaking of grift, exit through the grift shop. That's the number 4, libertyshop.com. Exit through the grift shop. Buy yourself a box of delicious Founding Flavors coffee. Pick up a copy of me and Steffi's children's book, Calvin, the Coolest President, about Calvin Coolidge. And it's because you're not a psychopath. So head to 4libertyshop.com. Enjoy the bonus content. Amy J. E's, I'll see you next week. Drew Van Runkle, Luke Sacker, the Rumblebot, Burt Crash, and Nelson65, and all of our other friends in the chat, Luke Sacker and others. Will see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Harvard's throwing a tantrum. Exactly why this situation is so absurd. We shouldn't be in this position at all. Strings are everywhere. And as long as they're taking that money, they're going to keep bumping up again.